Hello, everyone. It is Sunday, the 12th of January, 2025, and I am still in my bathrobe. I've been up for hours, but I've been down friggin' rabbit holes in my office here, and there's just so much that I want to share. And I want to reiterate, this is at my own expense that I do this. This is like my way of getting information out there that people within our highest levels of government are not tracking internationally, that people within my community, more people are aware of what's going on than they're even allowed to say or share, or getting or again they're getting censored just like me, or charged or suspended or kicked out, all of those things that I've talked about before, including people like Helen Bruce from Ottawa Police Services, and countless others that I've talked about as well, including a friend of mine that had over 20 plus years as an Army officer. First she was artillery, and then she went into the mental health department, and was pregnant when she was kicked out because she refused the jab because of the known VAERS regarding that therapeutic, which was not a vaccine. And anyways, things that I can't talk about because I'm on YouTube. So this, I might already get another strike before I even finish this video, which is why on YouTube, I might go off at some point, just again, so that I literally just got back today after a couple of weeks of yet another strike. And it's alleged that it was medical misinformation. And again, that's incorrect, especially when I share medical, scientific, and government data to back up my claims, my claims. And I actually also cite actual experts, not people that have, what do you want to call it, honorary degrees, or got a degree and then went right to panels and committees and boards and stuff like that, and didn't actually practice within their fields. So when I'm sharing information from people like Byron Bridle or Dr. McCullough, or from Dr. John Campbell, the people that are actually experts in their fields, Maloney and others, that's not medical misinformation. I'm sorry. Teresa Tam and Kieran Moore and people like that from Canada, those are the ones that are the pseudoscientists, not experts, and still getting paid by taxpayers to continue to lie to us. It's just it's very interesting. So I'm just going to get into my Instagram stories and posts. Yes, I still got to pile wood today. I only did a bit of it yesterday because I got busy in the afternoon. But I wanted to share a few things. I've shared this before, but I want to just reiterate how easily influenced people can be. I've talked about the bystander effect and all that other stuff before, and Stanford prison experiments and Universe 25 and countless others. And I've talked about the Milgram experiment. And this is from the King of Beartaria, also known as Owen Wilson. And this is a post from like 5 days ago. Anyway, the Milgram experiment showed that over 60% of the population would murder a complete stranger because someone told them to in a lab coat. They didn't want to either. It's not that people are evil. They're just hackable. It's why, and then that's why he says that he teaches this stuff on a stream when he talks about different things himself. But yeah, so over 60% of people would actually murder an innocent civilian if someone in a lab coat told them to, like, or a uniform, someone that appears to be professional, even if they're not, even if they're lying and playing dress up. It's been shown. This is important.
Of the
So I want to see, my volume's down. Sorry about that. So I've called out, not called out, but I've addressed concerns regarding Jenny Carignan, who is now the current Chief of Defense Staff in Canada, like the highest ranking military person in the Canadian Armed Forces. And I've talked about this so many times for the last few years. In fact, even emailing her a few years ago during COVID and saying your push on this like woke DEI agenda is not only crippling the military, but you're also like concurrently kicking people out and harassing people and stuff like that with these Canforgens, kicking people out of the military, even pregnant women. Okay, so how is that assisting with your woke DEI push and integration of other minorities within the Canadian Armed Forces that actually are doing good work? You're fucking them over, anyways. And look at our military now; it's completely crippled, and a lot of the money again going towards like woke DEI initiatives and training and stuff like that, instead of actually going towards proper equipment, proper resources, properly funding our military, who are even still sleeping in vehicles, or or multiple people in the same home because they can't afford rent or a mortgage because of, again, how people like Chrystia Freeland and Morneau before her and others like absolutely crippled our economy. More Chrystia Freeland than Morneau. And yeah, are these people getting investigated? No. There's like, she might possibly be the leader of the Liberal Party by March 9th, which is absolutely disgusting. And Mark Carney is also on that list, possibly the next leader of the Liberal Party. And this is not, respectfully, this is not good for Canadians. This is still people that are pushing an international agenda that's not helping us at all. Anyway,
Canadian security.
This is CSIS Canadian. Anyway.
Security Intelligence Service, Vanessa Lloyd, has stirred controversy with a report labeling pushback about gender ideology as a domestic security threat. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. Wild. If you don't think men can be women, you are a threat to Canadian national security, according to our intelligence agencies.
An extreme threat.
An extreme threat. 2 woke DEI hires that are now heads of the Canadian Armed Forces and CSIS. It's like the equivalent of like the CIA, Homeland Security, like type Mossad. Like this is what they're pushing, and calling people like me that say that men cannot be women and women cannot be men for so many different reasons. We are being labeled as extreme threats within our within our intelligence communities and military communities as well. And so being painted as the enemy, dehumanized, all that stuff. And I'm over it.
Yeah, an extreme.
We're over it.
Like this country's in such a bad place that our military is being run by a woman who spearheaded the DEI department in the army, who reported that the issue with the military was colonialism, racism, and heteronormativity. And now our intelligence agency is being run by a woman who not only lacks a clear understanding of basic biology, but believes that if you don't buy into a delusion driven by mental illness, which is what this thing is, and you aren't willing to subject your children to it, you're dangerous to society, and Canada should label you an extremist. And let's be real. What do they do to people that they deem threats to national security? They either imprison them or they take them out.
This is something that is
Lawfare.
very, very new, which you can poke holes through left, right, and center. But if I don't subscribe to your new way of thinking,
I'm an extremist and I'm dangerous.
Yeah.
The new interim director of the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, Vanessa Lloyd, has stirred controversy with
So Vanessa Lloyd should be fired.
A report labeling pushback about gender ideology as a domestic security threat. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. If you don't think men can be women, you are a threat to Canadian national security, according to our intelligence agencies.
An extreme threat.
Yeah,
an extreme threat.
Such an embarrassment.
Like this country's in such a bad place that our military is being run by a woman who spearheaded the DEI department in the army, who reported that the issue with the military was colonialism, racism, and heteronormativity. And
her words.
Now our intelligence agency is being run by a woman who not only lacks a clear understanding of basic biology, but believes that if you don't buy into a delusion driven by mental illness, which is what this thing is, and you aren't willing to subject your children to it, you're dangerous to society, and Canada should label you an extremist. And let's be real. What do they do to people that they deem threats to national security? They either imprison them or they take them out.
This is something that is...
No, there's also like lawfare, economic... whatever you want to call it, like economic fair. I don't know what you would call it, but like impacting people economically, like via their finances, and people are doing this based on people at the top and in cabinet are doing this based upon people's voting trends. To what anyway? To their response to different events, and to it's just mind blowing. And this is Canada's climate change activist. Also a member of parliament, or at least works for government. I don't know if he's like actually a member of parliament, but he's like the climate change initiative guy. And I really liked what Bud's It's Bustin' said about him. I'm going to show the post. Okay, so I've talked about Stephen Guilbeault for years now, and his extreme measures that have impacted all of Canada. And I've talked about specifically the rural populations as well, which is important to have like a certain percentage of people within a country in rural areas and within the agricultural areas and stuff like that, and not being commercialized. And he's impacted small and medium type farms and more, and pushing the carbon tax. Again, this is a scam. and where a large majority of this goes towards salaries, like his salary. So of course he has like a conflict of interest there, because he wouldn't be relevant like once the scam is blown up, right? So introducing Stephen Guilbeault, Canada's Minister of, okay, so he is a minister. So Canada's Minister of Environment and Climate Change, a one-time Greenpeace activist now tasked with safeguarding our planet, yet his actions paint a picture of irony and potential conflict of interest. On one hand, Guilbeault is expected to mitigate climate change and protect biodiversity. On the other, he's tied into legislation surrounding geoengineering, which quite literally interferes with natural processes and alters the climate. Guilbeault is also involved with the Pest Management Regulatory Agency, dictating pesticide warfare, where the very act of controlling pests could lead to environmental harm, contradicting the very principles of environmental protection he's meant to uphold. Now let's not overlook the fact that genetically modified mosquitoes and other insects, by the way, even dragonflies, and when you're creating these species that are more advanced or have or technology based, like some of these are like AI type, like, you know what I'm like, systems to introduce into the environment. These are considered to be invasive species. So these new mosquitoes and these new dragonflies and stuff like that they're trying to put out there to help us is actually going to harm those species, and then also the environment and us as well. And that's why, like, even with like invasive species regarding humans, like the more you modify humans, could that be considered an invasive species? I don't know. Okay, so the genetically modified Bill Gates paved the way to. All the while being affiliated with Greenpeace, an organization that has historically opposed such interventions, which just so happens to be funded by none other than George Soros. Is Guilbeault our environmental savior, or the architect of nature's undoing? And I'm going to say it's the latter. And if he's affiliated with Soros, just like Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau and countless others within cabinet, then they should be fired. Respectfully. You're not helping Canadians. Like, how is this not obvious? I am speaking about DEI hires. And I did want to share this because, like, I think this is very important, because there's been a lot of heat being put on the Chief Crowley. And so I didn't want to just leave it at that and just just judge her and then not follow up. And so I was looking at interviews that she actually conducted recently. And I really think that people need to see this, because she's possibly not a DEI hire, someone that's actually committed to her job and got fucked over by the mayor, by Gavin Newsom and others. And this is why. So I'm going to play
the chief at the LAFD criticizing publicly LA Mayor Karen Bass during this interview with Gigi Graciette. It set off this whole thing. The Daily Mail, this article is all over the internet, and I had a lot of viewers messaging me, asking
Likewise.
me, is this true? Is this true? The Daily Mail reported that after that interview by Gigi, LA Mayor Karen Bass fired Kristen Crowley as LAFD chief. We asked the mayor's office, is that true? And the mayor's spokesperson, Zach Seidel, saying, no, that report is not true.
Candor shared with us. I can tell you, Alex and Marla, the chief had tears in her eyes. She lives in Los Angeles. She has seen the devastation. And we reviewed years worth of memos where the chief warned that the department was seriously understaffed and underfunded. Do you know that they have less firefighters now than they had 10 to 14 years ago? And yet the city has grown. So the fire department apparently is not keeping up with the population of Los Angeles. That appears to be a fact. Another memo I was shown was there are industry standards for how many firefighters should be available per population. And I don't remember the number of the population, but for Los Angeles, the recommended minimum amount of firefighters is 1.8. So let's say 2 firefighters per X amount of population in LA. LA City Fire has 0.9.
just want to go into the interview here.
Now, on the site formerly known as Twitter, where she warned in December that the budget cuts affecting the department could seriously affect their ability to respond to a major emergency, including wildfires and earthquakes. And the budget cuts she's talking about are budget cuts that affected their ability to do hydrant checks, to go door to door in high fire risk areas and make sure that the brush clearance was in check, was done by homeowners. So, we're all talking about this. The devastation is like nothing that any of us have ever seen. And we're going to need answers. The residents, there's no such thing as a fire season anymore in the budget cuts.
Okay, so I didn't look through this before sharing it. So I wanted to share her actually speaking because she's very well spoken, and she seems very upset with what's happened. And so there's things that need to be brought
And I
up.
tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes. We are still understaffed, we're still under-resourced, and we're still underfunded. So with that, whether it's 7 million, 10 million.
But was the budget cut? Chief?
Yes, it was cut. And it did impact our ability to provide service.
When you hear the mayor say it didn't affect anything at all, what is going through your head?
Since the 3 years that I've been in the seat, I've sounded the alarm to say we need more. This is no longer sustainable. So with that, we're now in a position to be properly funded. We are screaming to be properly funded to make sure that our firefighters can do their jobs so that we can serve the community that we took an oath. My message is the fire department needs to be properly funded.
And it's not.
It's not at this point. And we've got the justification. We know where our gaps in service are. We know we need 62 new fire stations. We need to double the size of our firefighters. The growth of this city since 1960 has doubled, and we have less fire stations.
Let's repeat that because those numbers are a little jarring. 20 years.
Okay, I got a better one now. Sorry for this. I just think it's really important to. I already lost my viewer, the one viewer I had. Anyway.
Fire department, and of course all the other fire departments that are assisting us with these fires. A new fire just broke out now in Granada Hills. Joining me now live, the chief of the Los Angeles City Fire Department, Kristen Crowley. Thank you for talking to us today. And we're just going to get straight to the nitty gritty because there's been so much talk, and you're aware of the criticism.
Yes.
Most of the criticism has been directed towards the city of Los Angeles, towards Mayor Karen Bass, but it's also been directed towards the administration. Everybody loves firefighters. Mm-hmm. We love our men and women on the front lines, but the administration is another thing, and they've been very critical of the way everything has been handled. Your reaction when you read those tweets, those messages, those emails?
I tell you, my reaction first and foremost is to step back and remind myself that I'm not a politician. I'm the fire chief of the greatest fire department in the world. So my focus, first and foremost, is to make sure that our fire department, our firefighters are properly funded, they're properly trained, they're properly equipped. So when it comes to the criticism, since day one, my number one priority has been and will continue to be that our firefighters get what they need so that they can serve the community. That is number one. I am going to turn down the noise when it comes to any type of criticism because every decision that I make is going to be based off of what my firefighters need.
And those lives are on the line. So let's get to the big question, the budget. There's so much talk about it. It was cut 17 million. It was cut this. It wasn't cut at all, according to one newspaper. Was your budget for the fiscal year 2024-2025 cut?
I can tell you, I'm going to even go back further than that. Again, since day one, we've identified huge gaps in regard to our service delivery and our ability from our firefighters, boots on the ground, to do their jobs. Since day one, this is my third budget as we're going into 25-26. What I can tell you is we are still understaffed, we're still under-resourced, and we're still underfunded. So with that, whether it's 7 million, 10 million.
And just a point on that, because they're funding proxy wars in the Middle East and in Europe. And also, I just got to share this. California is spending $2.6 billion per year on healthcare for illegal aliens. Let that sink in. For criminals, because again, you're here or there illegally and getting free healthcare. And not only that, but at the tune of 2.6 billion per year, money that could be spent on actual Californians. Make it make sense to me, please.
Was the budget cut, Chief?
Yes, it was cut. And it did impact our ability to provide service.
Let's talk about that memo. You sent a memo, a scathing memo to the Board of Fire Commissioners where you expressed your concern that you were not going to be able to do your job. Your firefighters would not be able to respond adequately to a major emergency like a wildfire, like what we're seeing right now.
Right. So understanding where our services gaps are, number one, is understanding where our firefighters need in regard to their equipment. Now, let's focus back on what our people need, and what they need to be is properly funded and equipped. Whether it's 7 million or not, it doesn't matter. It impacts our ability, just like you said with the board report, of our ability to provide service. And that's on a normal day. Our firefighters are running over 1,500 calls. They're transporting 650 patients a day on a normal day, let alone the last 3 days of what we've had with significant impacts that have changed the communities that we serve, their lives forever. So with that, we're going to continue to fight for what we need to. That is my job as the fire chief of the best fire department in the world.
In December, you wrote that memo. You said that these budget cuts were going to severely affect your department, from everything from brush clearance checks to make sure homeowners were doing what they needed to do, to fire hydrant checks. And yet you heard the mayor just yesterday say, no, those cuts did not affect the ability to serve and would not have changed anything in this situation. What is going through your mind? And I know this is difficult. There are a lot of politics at play. You are not a politician. You are the woman responsible for all these men and women at LA City Fire and for our residents in the city of Los Angeles. When you hear the mayor say it didn't affect anything at all, what is going through your head? If you can share that with us.
Sure. So just full transparency. Again, my position is to make sure that our people get what they need to do their jobs, and also, mind you, that they get to go home to their families. The amount of calls that our firefighters are running today has doubled since 2010, a 55% increase with 68 less people. Full transparency, this isn't a new problem for us. Since the 3 years that I've been in the seat, I've sounded the alarm to say we need more.
And this is why insurance companies were canceling insurance or not redoing contracts with people, because they were also aware that a fire out of control in these areas was likely inevitable. Like, this has been warned and talked about now for literally years, just like in Canada, in BC and other areas as well, warned for years. So why would they take that risk with people, knowing how mismanaged this was?
This is no longer sustainable. So with that, we're now in a position to be properly funded. We are screaming to be properly funded to make sure that our firefighters can do their jobs so that we can serve the community that we took an oath.
But when the representative of the city says the cuts that were made and signed did not affect the response to the fire that is being criticized, the response that is being criticized by so many people, what is going through your mind?
Yeah, just again, the full transparency of the documentation, of being able to sound the alarm.
Does it make you mad?
I don't know if it makes me mad. In the end, that is my job as a chief, to make sure that my voice is heard and my voice is amplified from the needs of what our people need to do their job.
So tell the city, tell the residents, tell the people that are out there. I mean, thousands and thousands of people have lost their homes, and they're looking to blame someone, and it's not the Santa Ana winds necessarily. Right. They are looking to blame administrators.
Right.
Of course.
What is the message here? And have you had a one-on-one with the Mayor Bass and said, hey, I told you so. I told you this was going to affect our ability to respond to a major emergency.
I would start with a message to the community. I think they already know in their hearts that our LAFD firefighters are here to serve them, first and foremost. Again, none of us on the fire department are politicians. we're public servants first. We took an oath to serve the public before ourselves and even before our families. So with that, I want to focus on path forward. I want to focus on what the LAFD needs, what I need as a fire chief, and what our people need to do their jobs to make sure that we can save lives and that we can protect property to the greatest capacity, but we need to be funded appropriately. And that's where my head is, you asked.
The mayor said it didn't affect your ability to respond. Did it affect LA City Fire's ability to respond, starting with the Palisade fire and then this domino effect of fires, including the Archer fire that we're seeing happen right now in Granada Hills?
Yeah, I think obviously any budget cut is going to impact our ability to provide service. That's at this point, that is a ground truth in regard to our ability. If there's a budget cut, we had to pull from somewhere else. What does that mean? That doesn't get done. There's delays. So in the end, again, I'm going to focus on getting us what we need from this particular catastrophe and disaster and how much it's impacted the communities that we love. I got to go after the things that will help our firefighters, keep them safe, and make sure that if and when this ever happens again, that we're properly funded and that we have the ability to do our jobs and keep people safe.
What is your message to city administrators, starting with Mayor Bass?
My message is the fire department needs to be properly funded.
And it's not.
It's not at this point, and we've got the justification. We know where our gaps in service are. We know we need 62 new fire stations. We need to double the size of our firefighters. The growth of this city since 1960 has doubled, and we have less fire stations.
Let's repeat that, because those numbers are a little jarring. 20 years ago, you had more fire stations than you had now?
We had 112 fire stations. Now we have 106. And since 2010, we've had an increase, doubled our call volume, which is firefighters responding to calls, 55% increase with 68 less firefighters.
So the city funding is not keeping up with the city's needs in real time.
No, and that's what our firefighters need.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you again. I'm going to continue pressing you on this. In your mind, what were you thinking when you hear all those city leaders say, it didn't affect, everything was great, it's unprecedented and la la la. And yes, the Santa Ana winds are unprecedented. We don't have them in January. We all know that. What was going through your heart?
What's going through my heart is that our firefighters, the community's firefighters, LAFD firefighters need to be properly funded. We need to be supported so that they can do their jobs.
And let me show you real quick. Photographer Tony Buttigieg, I'm going to ask you to pan over to that table. Tell me what I'm looking at. This is memo after memo after memo, including to the Board of Fire Commissioners, where you pointed out your concern that you were not going to adequately be able to respond to a wildfire, an earthquake, everything that we see precisely in the city.
That's my job as a chief, is to take a big step back and understand where and how can we better serve the community. As a community needs more, we need to have more to make sure that our firefighters can serve them. I identified early, my team identified early, labor identified early that we have service gaps. So when you talk about sounding the alarm and asking and requesting budgets that are easily justifiable based off of the data, real data, shows what the fire department needs to serve this beautiful city and the beautiful community that we swore that we would. That's what that is about. It is the follow-up. It's showing and justifying where our gaps are, and it's raising and sounding the alarm that the fire department is underfunded, understaffed, and under-resourced.
Do you believe, had your budget concerns been properly addressed in the new fiscal year, would we have seen the same outcome that we are seeing now with thousands and thousands, unprecedented numbers of structures, homes, businesses lost? Would the outcome have been different if they had listened to you?
I do believe if we would have set ourselves up appropriately over the past 3 years, we would have been in a better position of what had happened here in the city where we lost homes and we lost lives.
That has to be very emotional for you. This is your job, but this has to be emotional.
This is more than a job to us. This is who we are. This is our duty. And when you don't have that ability and people don't listen, that's why I'm talking to you right now. The fire department needs to be funded appropriately, so that I can look any community member in the eye and say, your LAFD's got your back.
And right now you can't?
Right now, no. And that's why I'm here.
And how does that make you feel?
This is the burden of command as a fire chief of the greatest department in the world that I've wholeheartedly raised my hand to say, yes, I will represent the amazing men and women of the LAFD. And when they're not getting what they need to do their jobs, it's enough. And that's why I'm here.
And you have injured firefighters too. And you see those homes that have burned to the ground. There is so much loss. People are out of jobs. What goes through your heart when you see that?
The community is our community. Our firefighters stand with the community. We live in the communities that burned. So if anybody says anything in regard to our firefighters not doing everything that they can to protect our neighbors, our community, I will stand up and defend every action that our members went through and are still actively fighting fire.
I don't think anybody is criticizing the firefighters. I think the criticism has been lobbed maybe 80% at the city of Los Angeles and maybe 20% at the administration here.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, I'm here to make sure that we are garnering the support to get our LAFD firefighters what they need to do their jobs, period.
Did the city of Los Angeles fail you and your department and our city?
It's my job to stand up as a chief and exactly say justifiably what the fire department needs to operate to meet the demands of the community.
Did they fail you?
That is our job. And I tell you, that's why I'm here. So let's get us what we need so our firefighters can do their jobs.
Did they fail you?
Yes.
I want to get into the water stuff. Like
Chief Kristen Crowley, I believe the anchors
Yes.
wanted to ask a question back
yes,
there, had some comments.
We do, Gigi. If you could please ask her regarding the Times article that came out that the Santa Ynez Reservoir was closed to repairs and it was empty. 117 million gallons of water could have been used in this fight.
The question is about the Santa Ynez Reservoir being empty.
Great question.
There's been a lot of questions about that.
Sure. So my stance on this is when a firefighter comes up to a hydrant, we expect there's going to be water. We don't control the water supply. Our firefighters are there to protect lives and property and to make sure that we're properly trained and equipped.
So like she said, they don't control the water supply. That's actually something that I wasn't aware of. I thought that she would be tracking the reserve water like areas, the fire hydrant, like all of that stuff, but apparently not.
That's my position on this. So if there's no water, I don't know how the water gets to the hydrants. Please defer that to DWP or whomever controls that part. But I can tell you the resiliency of our firefighters, if there's no water, they're going to go find water. They're going to figure out a way to do the best they can with what they've got in a...
Well, they weren't able to find water. And there's multiple videos of them in direct, very upset because they were trying to connect to fire hydrants all over California and they were not able to help or prevent. And it was literally like, it was hard to watch. And it was hard for them to watch as they could do nothing.
Very dynamic situation.
And I know you expressed concerns that those DWP hydrants would not be inspected thoroughly because of the budget cuts.
That is something to discuss, and we're going to look into that in regard to how we can ensure there's going to be water when we need it. But in the end, you know, I'm going to defer that to DWP and whomever else controls the supply. I can guarantee you that when our firefighters showed up on that day with what they had, they did absolutely everything they could do to rescue and to save people's lives and property. And that's the bottom line. Now let's get them what they need to do their jobs. And
let's get them water, Chief, because I was with your firefighters and they literally were watching a house burn down with pain in their eyes, not being able to do anything except pull water from a swimming pool to try to save a nearby structure that wasn't burning, and literally watching a house burn to the ground because they had no water.
That's exactly right. But did they continue to work, and did they continue to do what they had to do the best they could with what they had? Yes.
Chief
Follow-up.
Kristen Crowley, thank you very much for talking to us. We appreciate it. I believe we have a follow-up question. Unprecedented times for the Los Angeles City Fire.
Okay, so I'm glad that they mentioned, and it's LADWP that's responsible for the water and stuff like that. And so again, very interesting that they need to be criminally investigated because people lost their fucking lives and their homes. And as someone that even in 2022 alone, like I had two close friends of mine lose their homes to electrical fires, by the way, because of shitty work from certain construction destruction companies and the affiliated like home building companies that they use in Ottawa. Again, there's very much a monopoly on this, and it doesn't help Canadians. Lost everything, and so one of the people out of the two with children from two families that lived in this house, one of the ones I'm talking about, he is someone that is in the military over 20 years, and he lost everything, any certificates, any medals, his uniforms, his mementos, like things that he's gotten, like there's so much lost. And then his children lost stuff. The partner that he was with at the time, she lost everything as well, and her kids did. And it was very overwhelming. And there's things that they'll never be able to replace, obviously, right? And it's very sad that this happens to people, and especially when they don't have insurance. The people that were next to them, actually, their house caught fire as well because of the fire from my friend's house, because of electrical wiring issues. Their insurance just somehow lapsed within like a month, and so they weren't covered, and so they're still not able to rebuild. And they're a family of 3 or 4 children, and they were profoundly impacted. And this was during the winter of 2022, and they're still not able to afford to rebuild or even move into another home because they're still paying. So this really impacts people, and so I really also feel bad for the people that lost house insurance because these fires were inevitable and being warned were going to happen for literally years. So again, why would insurance companies, and again, this is just not to defend anyone, but like, why would they accept risk when they are advising and warning or concerned for years that, you know, it's just too much. It's just too much. So I did want to get that out of the way, and my God, I'm already 36 minutes in, but I did want to talk about the Scofield Bible and the King James Version of the Bible. I've talked about the King James Version of the Bible before, and possibly people like Sir Francis Bacon, who assisted in writing it, and King James being an actual pedophile and not a good person. And then the same thing with Scofield. And so if you just check the Scofield Bible that everyone loves, Cyrus Ingerson Scofield, the editor of the Scofield Reference Bible, was also known by the criminal alias Charlie Ingerson. Scofield was a disgraced former U.S. Attorney General who left Kansas in the early 1870s. Scofield's Bible somehow is considered one of the most influential versions of the Bible in American history. And it goes on from there. This guy is a disgraced U.S. Attorney General, also not a good guy. And so I don't understand why people, and this is why I don't get it. I don't get it. Even with the King James Version of the Bible that everyone loves, right? And again, I don't subscribe to any specific religion because I think there's good values and morals and lessons in all religious texts and scripts and ideologies, but there's also really negative stuff, right? And I think that this is by design to keep people fighting. And when you blame it on some kind of a divinity that's beyond yourself or people on earth, then it's very easy to even do things like justify death, for people that don't follow your freaking religion and stuff like that. And so it just also frustrates me that in first world countries now, there's such a hate and resentment towards Christianity, even though a lot of our culture and ideologies and ethics and values they stem from that religion in these specific countries I'm talking about. But people are so people hate Christianity, hate Christians, Catholics. It's a known fact. A lot of schools and institutions that are getting targeted are religious in nature, or at least a lot of them are. But other religions, people are fully accepting from other countries where there's gang rapes, where there's women having to very oppressed, not able to get an education, not able to even go out in public without being completely covered, not able to. There's just so much, and then even in certain countries where their religion is allowing them to, again, we're over 40% of marriages in certain countries are underage children, right? So young girls getting married off to guys even in their 40s and 50s and 60s. This is fucking disgusting. And people are just they're so accepting. And again, of religions where they're stoning to death people that are homosexual. And so when people are supporting religious groups or countries that fully support and enable genocide of specific groups based on their religious ideologies, if it's different from their own or other things, it's again, like people are supporting like the stupidest shit. And also, I will reiterate that Galatians 4:24 does discuss that the Bible is allegorical. So it's to be taken as truth, but not facts. And my interpretation of Galatians 4:24 is also like, it's an interpretation of I guess winning this computer game by accessing our higher levels of consciousness and awareness, and through our own works, like what we do for ourselves and for other people, right? Whether that be like attempting to perceive like a good environment, but through meditation, through mindfulness, through grounding, through trying to resist temptations, like not overconsume things like alcohol and drugs and shitty foods, getting proper rest and stuff like that, being present for yourself so that you could be present and actively engage in a meaningful, purposeful way for other people as well, and assisting the collective through individual works, and not relying on some kind of a savior to save you from earth, and then just do nothing. Just like, doesn't matter, like, Jesus Christ or the whatever's coming, and he's going to save us all, and there's going to be a rapture and people redeemed. No, literally no, in my humble opinion. And so like a lot of the people that are going off of these fucking Bibles, literally, it's this has also caused a lot of harm, right? And so again, I can see different perspectives with that as well. I want to see that there is a video regarding the Scofield Bible, and I want to see if this guy is kind of tracking. So I'm 2 minutes in, I'll rewind it.
Zionism is indeed.
It's Satanists that are ones that created these religious texts. It's just shitty people that intentionally created these texts and then blamed it on a divinity so that they couldn't be questioned in order to keep us distracted and divided.
Indeed, the philosophy or the movement of people who want to establish a new Israel as the center of a one world government. In order to accomplish their goal, they, however, had to do one very important thing. They needed the support of the worldwide.
Okay, so we're already talking about Israel, and so I'm going to get off YouTube. And so head on over to Rumble, Don189.